It's 5:30
Yeah,
p.m.
I know.
All right, quiet out in the audience, please.
Rabbies.
Is there any public comments on closed session items? If not, we'll adjourn to closed session.
Bye.
please come to order. Welcome everybody to actually our first study session of the 2023 school year. I have a report and closed session. We had Susan McFarland motion, Mr. Porter second, that the board approve the appointment of Joseph Ward as elementary principal. The vote was 6-0. Appointment of high school principal, Nicole Vitar, Mr. Porter motion, Ms. Alexander second, that we approve Nicole as a high school principal. The vote was 6-0. Mr. Connexet motion, Mr. Stroh second, that the board approve the appointment of Jamie Kite Olensky as program director. The vote was 6-0. Appointment, Mr. Connexet motion, Ms. Alexander second, that we approve the appointment of Kelly Collins as the program director. Vote was 6-0. This concludes our closed session report. Will you please stand for the pledge? By the way, everybody's here except Ms. Ball, and Ms. Ball is in India on a commitment that she has, so she will not be present today. Salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will start our study session. Yes, sir. We're on. Everybody's on? All right, executive summary presentation regarding the educational partner input from 2023 to 2024 LCAP. Dr. Sally, you've got the floor, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, President Nava, members of the board, Dr. Washer, Mr. Young, community members, employee group partners. This is our annual meeting to review LCAP input from our community partners and allow input and direction from the board. I'd like to introduce two individuals from my right. You're familiar with Dr. Seha, who has been leading our LCAP for the last few years. In his new role, he's transitioning away from LCAP lead and in favor of Dr. Wari is to my immediate right. She'll be transitioning to lead the LCAP moving forward. She has been adeptly handling our CARES funds, LCAP, COVID, and all those very well, doing that well with our budget office. And so, again, then for the purpose of this evening, it's really an information session, question and answer session, and input session. We didn't meet with the different community and bargaining groups to get their input at that time. That information is found in the addendum of the presentation, of many pages of that. We won't go into the detail of that unless you have specific questions. But at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Wari.
Okay, Dr. Sally, let me interrupt. I would like to introduce the people that are here, okay? That's my mistake. I'm sorry about that. We have a California School Employees Association, Desiree Weiss. We have a confidential employee group, Valerie McPhee. We have Lodi Educational Association, Lisa Wilkins. We have Lodi Pupil Personnel Association, Ivan Turnell. Welcome, Ivan. We have the Administrative Association, Eric Sandstrom. Not present. Lodi Unified Supervisors Group, Eric Wise. Okay. And then we have parent group input related to the 2023-24 LCAP. District Advisory Committee Representative Erica Hoffman. District English Learner Advisory Committee Representative Noelia Vidari Avila. Did I catch that right?
Noelia Vidari.
Thank you. Okay. That concludes my introduction, sir. Okay, we'll continue.
President Nava, Dr. Washer, Mr. Young, members of the board. As Dr. Sali mentioned, we're transitioning to Mariah Wary taking over the LCAP process, and so we've been doing the grand tour of the bargaining groups, the parent meetings. So January and February is when we usually do those meetings where we meet with our employee groups and our parent groups to collect their input and feedback to guide development for the upcoming 23-24 LCAP. And then tonight kicks off, kind of formalizes that process. We gain additional input from our employee groups and parent groups tonight. And I know we have several new board members. Just to give you a high-level overview of the rest of the year, tonight you'll have an opportunity to give staff feedback on things you definitely want us to include in the LCAP for 23-24. Dr. Wary and I will then work on developing the 23-24 LCAP, and we will bring that draft LCAP back to board at future meetings. So that'll be in May, and in June that we'll present various drafts to board and to staff, and we'll get additional input, working towards approval in June. So that's the high-level process. Dr. Wary is going to go into some information regarding the data and the input that we received from the various groups, and we'll get into some of their feedback. Dr. Wary.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Sali and Dr. Seha. My name is Mariah Wary, and I've been working with the COVID funds, ESSER and ELO and GEAR, and now I'll be assisting with the development of the 23-24 LCAP. And so over the past couple of months, I've been meeting with our bargaining units. I met with CSEA and LEA and LPPA, as well as parent educational input opportunities with DAC and DLAC. And then in addition to that, beginning on February the 13th, we opened up our thought exchange for additional community input, which we closed on March 3rd. We had over 800 participants and many, many thoughts that'll be summarized in the presentation today. Slide 1. What you see here is a mid-year data update where you can see a comparison to where we were the same time last year and where we are now in 22-23. Overall, you'll see that these statistics align with your board goals as well as priorities for the state, such as pupil achievement, pupil engagement, and also school climate. So in early literacy in math and ELA, I know we want to have everybody reading by 3rd grade. You'll see that overall we're progressing nicely and show growth. You will notice one thing when we look at our ELA and math data that we're reporting for cohort 1. We now have universal screeners in place so that we can pay attention to what we're doing in terms of MTSS. We also are, in this data, you'll see that we're looking at what the transition looks like for our students going from middle school to high school. And it looks like their overall academic achievement is improving, as evidenced by their grades in math and grade 9 ELA, and specifically in integrated math 1 and a high school math course. So fewer Fs, fewer percentages of Fs this year than same time last year. You'll also see that our suspensions and our chronic absentee rate, so our rate of suspension and our rate of chronic absenteeism, has decreased this time mid-year relative to the rates that we reported last year at this same time. So overall, we see some favorable local indicator data. Slide 2. So one of the things I've had the pleasure of doing with our educational partners over the past couple of months is beginning most of our conversations with a review of our goals. And so I'll just review those goals briefly one more time. Well, actually, probably won't be one more time, but goal 1, learning environments with highly qualified personnel to maximize academic core. Goal 2, all students demonstrate academic proficiency to prepare for college and career. And then our third goal, our third LCAP goal, are positive and supportive learning environments. On slide 3, you'll see the feedback that's summarized from the 800 thought exchange comments and the multiple meetings with educational partners. I'll give you guys a few minutes to take a look at the comments that were common. And then on the next slide, we'll summarize our staff recommendations. The staff encourages the board to continue with the LCAP actions, increase staffing in areas identified by the educational partners. As we add staff, we may need to make additional actions within the LCAP. We need to add some different line items. And next slide.
Well, I wanted to add, if we could go back to that slide, board may be wondering, where we're going to receive the funding for this additional staffing. I did want to inform board that earlier in the year in October, all of our school sites really put a concerted effort towards increasing the online data confirmation. And that's one of the ways that we receive our LCAP funds, is through identifying all of the low-income students within our school district boundaries, and we increased the overall percentage of our students who identified as low-income students, and that led to an increase in revenues of roughly $3 million. And so that's where we're proposing some of this increase come from, is from that additional revenue that we received. And some of it, we are beginning to find new homes for currently ESSER-funded staff. So that will be something that we'll need to do as ESSER funds expire. We will need to find a new home for that staffing within the LCAP. So that's one of the other reasons why we're suggesting some of this increased staffing in the LCAP as well.
And so then in the slides that remain, it's a lot of summary of all of the evenings that we got to meet with our bargaining units and our educational parent partners, as well as some of the summaries from a qualitative analysis of what was presented on Thought Exchange. Are there any questions?
President Nava, we're happy to answer any questions on the additional slides, or if you'd like to proceed with allowing the other representatives here to provide their input before asking questions, it's up to you how you'd like to proceed.
Being that none of the board members rose up to the occasion, I think that we will continue on, and then we will have the questions afterwards.
Okay.
And
Great.
really quickly, Mr. Nava, members of the board, I want to make sure you're aware that those ESSER-funded positions were out of one-time dollars, and moving those into ongoing LCAP, that's really up to you as a board if that's what you want to continue as an ongoing expenditure. So as you see that here in the executive summary, I just want to make sure you are aware of that.
All right, and would you like me to ask each of the bargaining group representatives, or would you like to use the agenda? Let me know how you'd like to
You guys are in the
proceed.
trenches, and it would be apropos for you to ask them, probably all. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Ivan. I guess we're just going to go in order, so I'll just
That works.
go clockwise this way. So Ivan is part of LPPA.
I prepared a handout. Am I allowed to pass it out?
He was the great summarizer when we met.
I'll pass it on. Thank you. Yep, appreciate it. So working with a group, is the mic on? That represents 7 different subgroups in LPPA. It's kind of hard to come to agreement on a lot of things, right? But what we did during our meetings, what we talked about is we have students in need and we have services, but we don't really have people within our group to coordinate services. And so what we're proposing is we added a lot of elementary counselors, the last couple of years, middle school. What we're proposing is to now target high school. And what we really want to do is coordinate MTSS. We want to do it with fidelity. We want to make sure that we have someone on each of our sites in order to monitor the data, implement services, and then monitor to make sure that everything's going right. And if not, then we have to change some things around, right? So we have all this data, but we don't really have anyone that's coordinating with all of our groups at our sites to make sure that what we're doing is effective. We're giving a lot of services, but we're not monitoring those services to make sure that we're doing everything that we should be doing. So what we're proposing, and you'll see in the sheet there, first I have the MTSS high school lead. What we'd like to have is one lead at each comprehensive high school as a school psychologist to coordinate our MTSS at that site. And that person would be able to run the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. They wouldn't have a caseload such as other school psychologists. What they would be responsible for is implementing our programs and monitoring, taking some of the load off of our school counselors and school psychologists so they have time to work and collaborate weekly or bi-weekly, however we do that, to make sure what we're doing is effective. And so that's the first part. The second part is we are looking to have a college and career area lead. So we're not asking for a person at each site, comprehensive high school. What we're asking for is one in our Stockton area, one in our Lodi area to work with the 2 high schools to implement our data monitoring, identify the growth of like our A through G completion, our CTE completers, our EL proficiency, which are all our LCAP goals. What we're looking is to coordinate services in those areas, but also to do vertical collaboration with our middle schools to make sure that we're working with those middle schools too. And so I have a lot more here, and I know that I'm short on time, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys are all aware of the different points that we're looking at and how that would benefit the district. So looking over that, does anyone have any questions?
I have a question, Ivan.
Yeah.
Why do we have a FT high school counselor at McNair?
Oh, okay, so moving on to the back side of the sheet, McNair has 4 high school counselors. And originally we added a 5th counselor at the 3 comprehensive, but not McNair because their numbers were lower. They were at 1,600 students. Now they've grown to over 1,800, and so their caseloads have jumped from 400 to around 460, 475 or so. Whereas all the other high school counselors are now around 400 or so to 1. So we're proposing to add a 5th counselor there so it's equitable and all students have a similar chance to meet with their counselor at McNair, such as the other schools.
So we're deficient 1 counselor at McNair.
We
that's
are,
what you're
yeah.
saying. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
We both kind of have the same question.
Question?
I'll leave it to Sherry's gonna jump in after me.
Who wants to be first?
I'm gonna go first and then Sherry's gonna
Okay.
pick up
All
whatever I
right.
guess, which is probably why. Under your high school site leads, I love the idea. What concerns me is that middle school is kind of a breeze. Hit and miss. What I would like to see more done at middle schools because that's the feeder into your high school problem.
Sure.
So if maybe we can figure it out at middle school, it'll lessen the load at the high school level.
I agree completely, yeah.
So what you're saying is you'd like another position?
Yes, I would like middle school positions as well, definitely.
Love your thinking.
wondering, how many open positions do we have, or are they all filled currently, the counseling positions? throughout?
All of our middle school and high school positions are filled. I do believe we do have 3 or 4 elementary counselors openings, from what the last I heard.
Are you having the same trouble getting people in that most other people are as well?
Yeah, we are, definitely. And we have, I believe, a couple of interns filling positions which we've never had before.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ivan.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, we'll continue, Mr. Sahan.
Eric Wise,
At this point, LUSD respectfully has no comments at this time.
Lisa, and LEA.
Thank you. So, can I ask a question of LPPA? Sure. Because it kind of does affect us. So, you have 3 or 4 elementary counselor spots. How many open spots do you have for school nurses?
We have several, I can't tell you offhand.
Okay, and then speech pathologies?
Several.
Pathologists, sorry.
Several, but we have several positions filled by contractors.
We can provide that information to the board, specifically vacant FTEs.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Okay, so going back, this is the thing with teaching, is teachers don't work in a vacuum, we don't work in a silo. We need the support of all of this other staff here to make our jobs work. And so one of the things that going through this I noticed is that child welfare and attendance. I'm happy to see that our chronic absenteeism rate is going down, but some of my teachers have asked, can we get CWA to do home visits to find out really what's going on? And can we get funding for this in CWA? Again, that's not my bailiwick, but we need them because we can't teach the students unless they're in the classroom. Special ed. Whew. We are starting the year off with over 50 special ed teacher vacancies. We have got to do something to help our special ed teachers. I know that in some of the specifics, in the more details as we talk about stipends. Every other district in San Joaquin County gives a stipend ranging from $1,800 to $2,500 because these people do a lot of work. I don't know if you've ever seen the workload of a SPED teacher, but they're doing a lot more parent contact. They have a lot more meetings. They have a ton more paperwork. They need to be compensated for that, and not only just the teachers, but I believe that the special ed staff. We are woefully short of paras and PAWs. And since these special ed classrooms are not fully staffed, these create safety issues for teachers, for students, and for staff. This needs to be addressed. It's a huge, huge issue, and I know that a lot of SPED teachers are leaving our district or leaving the profession altogether because they are overwhelmed. Another thing that I came up with is we talk about SEL for students. Yes, students need to know, some of us have to have social emotional learning, and they have to have supports for that. But I'm finding more and more teachers need this as well. We need to give teachers that support, and I know we have the employee assistance plan. I went through what was sent to us recently from Chelsea, and it puts the onus on a teacher for them to call for help. And I don't know about you, but I know that like when I've been drowning, when I've been anxious, we don't see it. Sometimes somebody else has to tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, what's going on? We need that for teachers. And not only just to say, hey, what's going on, but to be that empathetic ear and to directly give them the resources, to sit down with them and say, these are the resources that are available to you. Again, instead of adding it to the teacher's workload, to say, figure it out. we have this EAP, but the EAP will just say, okay, well, same thing, they put the onus back on you. They say, who's your health plan? We can, we can do so many video counseling things, but, go look at your own health plan and see what they have. They can maybe give you a little bit of guidance. If you need more help than just counseling, it's woefully deficient, okay? And I know it's not just affecting teachers, I know it's affecting other work groups here, but if they need to be referred to some sort of an intervention program, we need more information. As a teacher leader, I would like to have more information so that if my members are having issues, I have some concrete places to go instead of saying, well, I don't really know what to do, because I don't. So those are just off the top of my head. We need to figure out ways to continue with some of the extended learning opportunities, because I do believe that one of the reasons our numbers are looking better is because we have these, and I know that money is going to go away. So how are we looking forward to giving the types of tutoring experiences we have? And again, yeah, what are we going to do for that after those monies go away? How are we going to support our students to make sure that they have the supports, because they're going to need this for years. Especially, I think, the elementary students who were home, especially, I want to say, the lower elementary students, kindergarten through third grade, who were home during COVID. They're going to need supports to catch them up, at least through middle school, if not longer. Again, I'm going back to safety. I just, a lot of the things in here are getting personnel that are not under my bailiwick, but we need that. And then one of the things I loved was more activities in sports during the day. Well, then we need to get these kids home. And if they need transportation support, we need to start looking at transportation support. So those are my two cents.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. Who's next?
Yes, and now Desiree.
Desiree?
You're up next.
Good evening, Mr. Young, Dr. Washer, members of the board. I think for classified, the main thing for us is our salary schedule, as we've been discussing a lot in bargaining. And yes, we did recently sign an agreement, but it still doesn't take into account that our salary schedule does not currently reflect minimum wage. Somehow we have to make that a priority if we want to be, to be able to get people interested in applying for our positions. I've sat on several interviews in the last, month or two, and I'd say over half of them, they don't select anybody because there's nobody really qualified in the pool of people. That goes from an account technician all the way to a HVAC to a M3 we interviewed for and didn't select anybody. So the salary schedule is a big factor for us. The other thing is when you talk about positions, I do see staff recommendations up there. There's some classifications that have already received some allocations from previous LCAP years. I don't know if we want to spread the love, but we would like to see some of the positions that were restored from the budget cuts. We have several positions that are still working on reduced work years. Typist clerks in the elementary schools are still working on reduced work years. Our district community bilingual assistants that work on our second floor are still working on reduced work years. Oftentimes are asked to work on a time card during the summer. We have warehouse and delivery drivers that are still working on reduced work years. We used to have 7 painters, we have 4. I know that they would like to see some additional positions over at our maintenance yard. Custodial did receive some previous allocations through LCAP, but I still don't believe it's up to par, especially for the needs and the demands of our custodians at the school sites. And when you really look at the FTE in a lot of our areas, it really doesn't take into account sick leave and vacation. So if somebody takes sick leave, then it's really negatively affecting their school sites and their departments. as well as vacation. There are some classifications that make it very difficult to schedule those vacations, and we have to take it. That's been a demand from the district. I'm sure people would love to be paid out, but we have to take it by a certain date. So really, it's the salary schedule and additional staff. And if we want to, have people apply for our positions, we really need to make our focus point the salary schedule. We would like to see the salary schedule in a perfect world squared up. So we put minimum wage in the first cell of our salary schedule and equally distribute that throughout. We feel that would be that would help all classifications and not just a small handful of classifications. And we'll see what the future holds. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McPhee?
Good evening. The members of the confidential unit will continue to provide support for board directives, including the 3 LCAP focus goals that we are discussing this evening. We agree with our fellow employee groups that there are areas that require a closer look and funding allocations to address needs, including further strengthening positive learning environments for our students, funding to address recruiting and retaining personnel, including proper staffing levels for both certificated and classified employees to better serve our students and maintain the efficiency of running a large district, funding to ensure safety for staff and students, and resources to enable staff to properly maintain school sites and district buildings. My fellow confidential unit employees have expressed the need to begin a conversation with the board to discuss the need for assistance in the area of health care benefit allotment. However, that conversation will require a thorough explanation of past and present circumstances, which would be too lengthy for this forum, but we will work on a presentation and get that to you in the coming weeks regarding a health care benefit allotment. That's one of our main concerns that we're needing assistance with.
Thank you, Ms. McPhee. Ms. Avalon?
Hello. So over at our site, our main concern or need that we have is jump into English for parents, jump into math. Also, more after-school intervention programs for our students. We're not a Title I school, so we don't have like the bridge program, and a lot of parents can't help their kids with their homework because they don't know how to help them, or they can't help them because of the language. So they would like them to stay after school with teachers for help with their homework. There is an intervention, but it's maximum like 30 kids, and it's already full. And along with the homework help with the students, also Lockwood School, which is where I'm a parent at, it's in need of hotspots as well, because it's a countryside school, and many like AT&T or Xfinity, they don't get good services out there, a good signal, and it is very pricey for the one that does give out services. Is about $95 a month, and a lot of families cannot afford it. So we only receive 4 hotspots, and for the need that we have, it's not enough.
Thank you. Ms. Hoffman?
Hello, my name is Erica Hoffman. I'm the site council rep for Washington Elementary, and I was asked to attend the LCAP meeting and bring feedback back to our school at Washington. So at our first meeting, we discussed the 3 goals and how the district will allocate money to help improve our schools. And then at the second meeting, we discussed we gave written feedback, and we also used the Thought Exchange app when we were at the meeting. It was easy. It wasn't hard. They gave us a QR code, and we just were able to use it and go on our phones and type in the feedback, and we were done. It wasn't a long process at all. It was quick and fast. Mariah and I talked, and there was some concerns that came up, and some more student input. And I don't think that students realize how much, how involved they can be in their education and how much of a say they can have in their education. So I think letting students know that they can have an input will bridge this gap between their education and their learning for school and student. Also, parents were concerned about, they were wanting volunteer opportunities for students at school, you know, to have a network that maybe there's some employers out there who are willing to have students come and get job experience. So having school networked with businesses can maybe help with this issue. You know, there's a lot of kids out there that want to get jobs eventually, and you know, if they don't have any experience, they're not going to get hired. Another issue is mental health issues. Students aren't receiving the services they need, and I think that this is becoming a bigger problem as time goes on. Also, support for Lodi staff, having professional development, and that was a big concern is making sure that staff is trained. Also, all students are not meeting grade level, and this is a concern, so we were brainstorming, you know, the after-school program and maybe busing and things so that students can get the extra help they needed. Maybe if there was parent trainings or something on how to work, you know, how to do the math or how to, you know, how to help their kids with their homework or online things that maybe they could do with tutors or, you know, somebody available for them, for parents to help their students. And then also safety, so having crossing guards at our schools, or having enough crossing guards, and also maybe, I know at my son's school, he goes to Lodi High, there is police presence there, and maybe having that more available at other schools too.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman.
You're welcome.
Okay, at this point, we have any public comments related to the presentation? If not, and we will go to board comments related to the presentation. Any board members have any comments? Yes, Mr. Knaxa.
Thank you for all for showing up tonight and letting us know what your thinking is. I tend to kind of boil things down. What I'm hearing is really not new information. What we need is more people in almost every area. And in order to get more people in almost every area, we need to have more money and not relying upon one-time funds. So, you know, our goal then really is, has always been, Mr. Young, is figuring out how to get the money to do these things. And every one of these are legit. I don't have an answer, but that's you guys' job, I guess. But yeah, I do appreciate it. If I'm misstating that, CSEA, you know, how in the heck can we not have a salary schedule that doesn't reflect at least minimum wage? You know, it's beyond me. We cannot expect to have staff, you know, teachers without the special education support. I don't have a solution, but I hear you. I understand what you're saying. Next step is to figure out where to get that money. And I know Mr. Khan's got it all figured out. Yeah, I see you back there, man.
Thank you, Gary. Any other board comments? Yes, Mr. Porter.
I just have questions.
Questions, he says.
I appreciate Mr. Knack said that the bottom line really is money. Chronic absenteeism. Define chronic for me.
The CDE defines chronic absenteeism as students who miss 10% or more of the school year. Since our school year is 180 school days, if a student misses 18 days or more in a given year, they're considered chronically absent.
And then you pulled this from halfway through the year?
Yes, our assessment, research, and evaluation department pulled a mid-year report to see how we're comparing this year to last year's rate at the same
So then you
time of
cannot
the year.
say that these are really accurate data because you're doing a mid-year report.
This is a snapshot of a point in time. We also have our dashboard data, which we're happy to provide it if
No,
you'd like to.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, you're showing us where we are as we are halfway.
Correct.
So these numbers could change.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, they'll definitely change as from week to week and month to month. But typically, children's attendance pattern persists.
Yeah. Now, in your chronic absenteeism, did you look at different groups at all, or just looked at overall?
I can respond to that, Mr. Porter, members of the board. To provide a snapshot, we wanted to make sure we were comparing apples to apples, half the year, half the year. We did not break it down in this report, however, we can give you a breakdown by different groups, and we can even compare it within the LCAP and our unduplicated. We can go deeper with that information and provide that to you as a board.
Because you already had that in your school report card, don't you? For each school?
I believe it in a similar fashion, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. It was just a question in my head. I see chronic, I don't know what it means. One, it could be 30, who knows?
Now you know, Mr. Porter.
Now we know.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Noah. My next question is on MTSS. Is it Ivan, is that correct?
Yeah.
Ivan. Thank you for the handout. I think that's incredible. It added a lot of clarity for me.
Great.
So I have some questions. MTSS, could you explain what it is to the board? Maybe I'm the only one that doesn't understand it.
Okay.
Where does PBIS fit with it? And how are we doing? How are we not doing? What is the data that's driving? You're asking for a coordinator at the 4 high schools, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess you can call it a coordinator, somebody that manages the program at each
They
comprehensive
would
site.
be in charge of what?
Implementing MTSS. MTSS is a multi-tiered support and services. It's the umbrella which we have PBIS, RTI, response to intervention, things like that. So there's an academic side, there's a behavioral side. The academic side is providing those academic interventions to help students in need, right? So we have to identify who's in need, and then we have to build those academic interventions, and then have someone or people that can work with teachers and students in the classroom as well with instructional strategies and things of that nature. And so PBIS is the behavioral side. And so for both sides, there's 3 tiers, and we're looking at the first tier is school-wide things that we do that target about 80% of the population or so of students. And then we have tier 2, which is about 15% of students that aren't responding to those tier 1 supports that we have in place. And so we do like SSTs, we'll have 504s, we have different interventions like check-in, check-out, restorative practices. There's a lot within that tier 2, and then there's about 5% that don't respond to that as well. And so we have those tier 3 interventions like doing functional behavior analysis, we do individual counseling, we do behavior intervention plans, things like that.
So what's happening now at our high schools?
Right now at our high schools, it's based on sites. We were trained several years ago in PBIS, and some schools did really well with it, but administrators come and go, staff come and go. Some that are trained are not at that site anymore, and so I can't tell you exactly, district-wide how it's running, but it's not consistent across schools.
What are your success or your SSTs? Because I've participated in quite a few of those. Do you have any data to support what an SST is doing? Let's say at the high school level. What's the data that supports the success of an SST?
Well, we don't really have enough time to run the data, right? What we're looking for is somebody that coordinates, that's able to do what we call like an October catch. And we're looking at office referrals, we're looking at grades at the quarter, and we want to be able to use some of that data, but we have people that are providing services. We don't really have someone to do the research, gather the data, and then bring teams together in order to implement things. But we do run SSTs, and we are recommending interventions. We bring all the teachers together, the parents, the student, and we're doing after-school tutoring, we have accommodations, informal accommodations that teachers are trying in the classroom. I can't really say, how effective that is because we don't have that person to manage the data collection for us.
So right now, we're kind of, what's that food I hate? It's a soup that's put together, chipino of stuff. It's just kind of bubbling all together, and we have no idea how it's gonna taste.
We're just trying to manage and keep things from getting worse.
Okay, so, I'm trying to linear what your needs are and see a roadmap here for success. You talked about academic. Are we talking about PLCs here, or are we talking about?
PLCs would be more on the teacher side where teachers are collaborating and working together. I don't.
That would fall into the academic side, wouldn't it?
With instructional strategies, it would, yeah.
Yeah, because you're talking about academics,
Mm-hmm.
and then the interventions that need to be done in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
that affect the teacher? So I don't see anything in here on how they're gonna interwork with teachers.
So our site lead, being a school psychologist, they work with educational strategies and practices at the tier 2 level to help teachers in order to provide additional supports for those students. So maybe a teacher PLC level is doing the tier 1, then we would have the site lead come in as a tier 2 to provide that extra support for specific behaviors that a teacher is having trouble managing.
Okay, I'm still confused, but I've been out of the classroom for 5 years, so, thank you for that.
Sure.
Appreciate that. There was a question, an answer made by Mr. Saya, Dr. Saya, I apologize for that, that you said we're gonna be moving people that we use ESSER money, GEAR money, and I believe you said you were gonna be moving them from the ELO funds to our general fund to pay for them, is that correct?
As Mr. Young clarified, we will, if unless we want to reduce staffing, we will need to identify a new funding source for the ESSER funded staffing. As you all know, ESSER 3 expires September 2024, which is after next school year. Some of this staffing is currently funded out of ESSER. It is staff's suggestion that we might consider moving some of the staffing currently funded out of ESSER over to LCAP to ease the transition next year.
Now, it's my understanding we had $30 million left in ESSER 3, is that correct?
I believe it's closer to 29,000, but
$29,000.
well, no, 29 million.
29 million. Now, I showed Mr. Young and I showed Mr. Khan that there are ways to stretch out that ESSER 3. I might be wrong. I've done a little bit of research. If we do PD and set up a guaranteed program for a numerous set of years, once we implement it, show where we're headed. Was I wrong on that?
The details of where ESSER and how long the funds could go if you have already identified, like, let's say we have a support person that's been identified.
Right.
We can stretch the money out so far, but I think the distinction we have to have is one-time funds do eventually go away,
Correct.
whereas the ongoing funds, when we're looking at positions, as we're looking here, we have to have a funding source for those to continue
Right.
beyond the date when the money runs out.
Okay. So, what I'm hearing is that we're going to take these people that were one-time funds. I believe at one of the board meetings, we were told, maybe I'm wrong again, Mr. Nava, Mr. Knackstedt can probably not support me, but give more information, that those people would just kind of go away with the money.
I'll give you an example, Mr. Porter, members of the board. If you remember, we had a program coordinator of tiered interventions. That position is no longer filled. That was funded out of one-time dollars.
Right.
So that would be an example where it did go away. When we're looking at some, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but some of those potentially could be, but you as a board have a decision to make about the positions that would have been funded out of ESSER or CARES or healthcare money and then wanting to continue with those, making sure we had a funding source that was ongoing.
Is it possible to stretch PD out a couple more if we have $30 million left? And that's their three, and we start an initiative now, we could do PD for various groups, whatever they come up with, whatever you guys come up with. Can we stretch that out a couple of years beyond 2025, I think it is? Or 2024?
Mr. Porter, members of the board, I would have to work closely with our purchasing department, the accounting department, because if we're expending it out of one-time money, if it's stretched out, we couldn't keep renewing new contracts one school year to the next. So we'd have to make sure that whatever we do fits within the regulations as far as purchasing and any professional development we would be offering.
Okay, thank you. I just had some questions about that. And then I have one more question, two more questions, sorry. Ms. Wilkins, did you say that LEA is open to, I don't even know if I'm in my right realm here, that you believe that special ed should get stipends?
Yes.
So you're going on record as saying LEA is supportive of special ed teachers getting stipends?
Yes.
Okay.
It's written somewhere, Mr. Porter. Yeah, it's on an MOU.
No, we do not have an MOU.
No, you have an MOU, but you have, you have suggested that stipend is okay for you to make, and you agree to that?
Right.
Yes.
I did.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is, the healthcare benefit allowance that you were discussing, Ms. McPhee, that I glommed onto, I agree with you, there's something we need to do for healthcare for all our groups, and I wish that this board and the district administration would look at doing a global approach to it. And Ms. Wise, your suggestion about we take a look at the totality of CSEA's salary schedule and be creative with it, that's something else we need to do. Now, with all of this information that Ian gave to us, Ivan, excuse me, I mispronounced your name, this is all great, we need, and I agree with Mr. Knackstad, I don't see how we fund. And I don't see where everybody's going with this, and I don't see data supporting what we're doing. I'd like us to be lean but effective. And I'm sure members of the board would agree with that. I'm a fiscal conservative. I want to be lean and effective. So if you're proposing all these people, yes, great. I would like to drive a Porsche. I can't afford
But you drive a BMW.
I can afford that. But now, getting back to that, and of course, I don't travel to Italy and Mexico like Mr. Nava does, but we'll talk about that another time. My point in all this is wonderful. We need to streamline it, all of us, in a way that will best fit our students, our clients. That's my point here. This looks great. I'm struggling with the avalanche of what we need to do, and how much you want, and then putting it so we're being effective.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any other board comments? Yeah, Ms. McFarland has a couple.
I have a couple. Let's start with Ms. McBee. I agree with you. We need to get that worked out. Ms. Wise, I agree with you. We need to figure that out. We also need to figure out principals benefits. That's also on my head. That's not in this report. I'd like to go, when I look at the suspension rates, and they look like they've gone down a bit, what I'm curious about is the MTSS. I'm in favor of the high school. I feel like the barn door is closed. We get into high school, the grades are failing, we've got behavioral issues, grade issues. What are we doing in 6th, 7th grade? Shouldn't these counselors be following them all the way through? And if we're at tier 1 in 7th grade, boy, maybe we can keep them at tier 1 all the way through. So I think focusing on high school makes me a little nervous because I think we've missed the mark. It's a little late, but that's just my personal opinion. I also think special ed, we don't need to beat that drum. We have to come up with a solution. Computer goes down. A solution and figure it out. I also, suspension rates. If all these interventions have worked up to this point, we've only come down, I think it was 0.7 because my computer just went dead. What's worked and what hasn't? Because I'm all about spending money for social and emotional help, and I think a lot of students probably were in for lack of a better word, a haze, and now they're realizing I'm still struggling from COVID and lots of other things going on in their life, just life. And so I think that is very important, and it fits into multiple levels of education. But I do agree that our staffing needs the same type of coddling, for lack of a better word also. I think we have lots of things in place. I don't know that we need to go in and ask somebody, are you okay? I think there's probably some legal ramifications if we start asking people about their mental health. But I do think that having information readily available to help them in any way we can in their classrooms, I'm all about it. The suspension rate makes me a little bit nervous because we're down, but we have crisis on our campus. So I don't know how we can be down if we're not helping those students and dealing with them. That statistic mid-year and what we hear goes on and what we see goes on and what we see, they don't work. They don't mesh together for me.
Thank you, Ms. McFarland. Any other comments? Okay, and I'll make my comments. I know we have every year we go through this, we have a plethora of demands. And to my estimation, as far as I've been an educator and other things in my life, is that we want to run a first-class operation in this district. And I know we're talking about money. Money always comes to deal with. What I like to see the LCAP is prioritize your demands and have a list as the priorities that you are going to do to support, and then bring them back to the board, and the board can make a decision, a prudent decision on how we're going to operate this district with all the demands that we have. All of them have merit. All of them have merit. There's no doubt about it, and all of us are involved in it. It goes through a lot of things that we do in education, and as you know, education is, we can't make long-range goals on education, not even a 5-year goal. So we're doing year to year or 2 years in advance. That's what happens in education. That's my experiences anyway. And I think that get the priority set, and let's get this LCAP to run a first-class operation. Thank you.
Mr. Nava?
Yes, sir. You may, sir.
You know, I agree totally with Mr. Nava, but if you're going to bring us a hierarchy of demands, needs, show us how they're going to work. Show me the data that supports them. And if you don't have that data, great, let's come back and revisit them. And maybe we'll throw them out and go with something else. Because that happens. You try a new idea, sometimes it doesn't work. That's okay. But show me a hierarchy how this is going to work. Also, I'd like to see us break things into elementary, special ed, and I'm going to say something tonight. Middle school needs to be included with high school. And when I say that, I mean, if we're doing PLCs, vertical and lateral, we've got to include the middle school, because right now, that is the forgotten part of our school district. And it's critical because you do a great job K through 6, and then 7 through 8, we lose these kids. And then they come into high school, as Mr. Nava said and Mr. Knakstad, they got bad grades, behavioral problems, and so forth. What happened? So if we make middle school a part of high school, and make the teachers collaborate, forming PLCs, so that a science teacher is doing something in 7th grade that's going to facilitate going into 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, that's going to help. And if we identify a child in 7th grade, we can jump on that kid before they get to high school. And I really think middle school is a forgotten individual right here. And of course, special ed, we really need to tackle that one-on-one, get after it, get after its needs and so forth. And of course, K through 6. That's the way I'd look at it. And finally, my last comment, this gives you an idea of where we are. All this information coming forward. Tokay's been without a groundskeeper for a year and a half. They don't have a groundskeeper for a year and a half, but yet tonight we hired 4 administrators.
Yeah, that might be just okay, it might be McNair, might be Bear Creek also that needs that, Mr. Porter. Yes, you know what you know, okay. All right, thank you very much. Is there anything that you need from the board, sir? Mr. Sally and Mr. Young and Mr. Seha and Ms. Larry? Anything you need from the board?
Just this evening is really for you to receive information, digest it, give us some direction coming up down the road and what you provided tonight. As you recall, last year we did come back with some options, prioritizations and such, and last year we had the benefit of additional funds. If you recall, I reversed 2 years, I remember speaking to the board that it's a zero-sum game at that time. If we were going to add something, we had to remove something. Last year we had the benefit of additional LCAP funding. This year we have the benefit of some additional due to the surveys that we did with our families that Dr. Seha mentioned earlier. Roughly to the tune of about $3 million added to our LCAP, which is not a lot when you consider the size of our LCAP, but it is substantial as far as individual staff members that we bring on. Last year we did add quite a few staff members in terms of counseling and custodial and other positions. So we will respond to that because the need is often served by the individuals that provide the service. And so we will add those. So we're just looking for your input and guidance and a chance for all the community members to voice their concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Sally. You heard all the board members say. Mr. Young, you have last words?
We have what we need, and we will prepare more information for you at our next meeting.
Thank you, LCAP committee, and all of you folks for your input. We appreciate that, and thank you very much for tonight.
Mr. Nava, may I make a comment?
You have a question?
Well, kind of a question, yeah, and it's kind of, so here's the thing. I love Mr. Porter's idea on analyzing the data. In elementary, I know that the teachers take a lot of data, they do a lot of testing. They don't have the opportunity to really analyze that data to figure out where these, figure out kind of where the kids fit in the multi-tiered system of supports. But I also like what several of you said is we need to be effective, but we need to be lean. And so looking at programs that do not work, where we have maybe some administrators or people here in the district office where those funds could be used instead to hire people who are actually boots on the ground interacting with our students. I think that's something that this district needs to really take a look at, because I think we have some of these programs and I don't know if they work, but we have administrators and other staff here in the district office. That's really expensive. Yet we can't hire paraeducators, we can't hire PAWs because we pay so low. I think that really needs to be a direction that the board needs to take a look at. And you know, like Mr. Porter said, let's be lean, but let's be effective. Thank you.
Thank you. No other business? Entertain a motion, please. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Porter, second by Ms. McFarland. All in favor? Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Oh, no, no.